Too Bright to See by Kyle Lukoff, Chapter 3. Some guests stay for a few days after the memorial. I make myself useful, dodging questions about how I'm holding up by doing endless loads of dishes and laundry. I pretend to be a character in a book, sometimes an abused but brilliant servant girl, sometimes a spy at a seedy hotel, sometimes a princess mistaken for a commoner. It's fun, kind of. It's something I've always done. Girls in books always seem more real than real life, and making believe that I'm in a story keeps my mind off of what I really am, which isn't much. It takes a couple days, but finally everyone goes back to where they live. Big cities for most of them. I was born in Brooklyn, but Mom moved us here when I was only a few months old. After my dad died, she says she didn't know how to stop one life, married, no kids, and start a new one, widowed, kid, without going all the way, without making another huge change. Uncle Roderick came with her. I never thought it was going to be permanent, he told me last year, while we were picking blueberries. He'd use them in a pie later, but I was eating mine right off the bush. We would vacation up here when we were kids, but neither of us had any reason to stay in Vermont. I thought we'd spend a couple years, she'd heal from the loss of your dad, and then we'd go back. But kids root you to a place. It's like we grew down into this earth instead of growing up from it. The biggest city I've been to is Burlington on a school field trip. I learned that Burlington is the smallest, biggest. The biggest city in the state and the smallest city with that distinction. It felt huge to me, people everywhere I looked, stores on top of stores on top of stores. Uncle Roderick talked about bringing me to New York, but we never made it. I don't think I'll ever visit now. It's morning. The house is empty of everyone except Mom and me, and I'm staring at Uncle Roderick's carved wooden tea cabinet perched below the spice rack, dying for a cuppa, like they say in old books from England. I don't know any other 11-year-olds who drink tea, but Uncle Roderick started making it for me, mostly honey and milk, once I graduated from sippy cups. I know there's a half-full drawer of jasmine in there, and I miss the weight of a heavy mug warming my hands, the comfort of sipping at something hot and sweet. But I can't bring myself to boil water, ease open the rickety drawer, measure leaves into a tea ball, steep it properly. Too many steps. I pour myself a glass of juice instead and fix a bowl of cereal. Mom shuffles in, still wearing her robe, looking like she hasn't slept for weeks. "Thank you for being so helpful these past few days, sweetheart," she says, her voice thick with sleep or grief, or both. "You'd make a great scullery maid." "I know," I mumble. My throat closes around any other words. Normally, we'd launch into some conversation about what chores you wouldn't want to do in a medieval castle, or I'd go into some dramatic monologue about working my fingers to the bone. But there isn't any laughter in me. And it wouldn't be the same without Uncle Roderick joining in, with a terrible attempt at an English accent, or pretending to be better than me because he's a chambermaid. I stir my spoon around the bowl, and Mom slips out to get the newspaper from the porch. There's not much laughter in her either, and I know she only tried for me. When she comes back, she tosses the comics page down on the counter in front of me and makes herself some coffee. She's never been much of a tea drinker, and I'm grateful for that. I stare at the comics, not actually reading them. Smiling seems like it would hurt, like clay has dried on my cheeks, and a twitch of my lips would crack it off. A prickling at the back of my eyes makes me look up. Mom has the paper spread out in front of her, but she's looking at me like she has more bad news. She swallows hard when I meet her gaze. There are new lines etched around the corners of her mouth, and her eyes are red. I know we planned on sending you to camp again in July, she begins softly, and I want to tell her to stop. I know where this is going. But she has that sad half smile on her face that I've seen a lot this past year. So I let her keep going. Mom and Uncle Roderick look so much alike, with shaggy, dirty blonde hair, green eyes, and pointy chins. My skin tans while their paler skin burns. I have bluer eyes, a bigger nose, dark hair. My dad had dark hair. I keep mine long because it never needs cutting that way. I grab the base of my ponytail and squeeze, the pull on my scalp, helping a little. Your uncle's insurance covered a lot of his medical bills, but that last place he was in, the hospice, was very expensive. I don't want you to worry we're not going to starve, but I'm afraid there isn't much extra cash lying around. I promise I'll do everything I can to help you have a fun summer, but camp is out of the question this year. Hopefully next year will be different. I'm so sorry, Bug. At camp, we sleep in a hayloft and gather eggs for breakfast. We play endless games of capture the flag and hide and seek, go on midnight walks, canoe in the lake, everything. I'm not great at making friends, but something about the comfortingly consistent bad food, whole day games of tag, the rainy days when we climb the rock wall in the gym, brings us all together in a way that school can't. Kids come from all over New England, and it's the only time in the year where I feel part of a larger group. I've gone every July since I was 6, and stayed for the entire month the past 2 years. I loved Uncle Roderick, and I loved camp. Now, I don't have either. It's okay, I say. It isn't, but it is. I should have guessed after going with Mom to visit Uncle Roderick in the hospital. All those treatments and medicines couldn't have been cheap, and he hadn't worked for a long time, not since he got really sick. Mom has always been honest with me, and talking about money is part of that. I can't whine about missing camp when I understand why. Besides, if I show Mom how upset I am, it will only make her feel worse, which won't make anything better. The cereal in my bowl is completely soggy now. There's no way I can finish it. I had only eaten 1 spoonful anyway. I shove aside my barely touched breakfast and unread comics, and tell Mom that I'm going outside. She pulls me into her arms as I walk past her, holding me tight. I don't want to be hugged right now, but I know that this hug is for her, that I have to show her that I'm not mad, so I squeeze her until she lets go. Only then do I take a deep breath. It's a beautiful day. We own a lot of the land around my house. The backyard is a big grassy field, and beyond that is a patch of woods I've explored ever since I could walk. A creek runs through the woods, and I can spend entire days reading on a boulder near the water or splashing around trying to catch minnows. Uncle Roderick would walk through the woods with me and tell stories of the gnomes and fairies hiding just out of sight, or point out edible plants and poisonous berries. We would pack a picnic lunch and find shapes in the clouds, sit quiet and still and wait for snakes and squirrels to come out around us. It never felt lonely. He would sometimes joke about the big city life he left behind, glamorous and loud and bright, but he loved filling our big house with restored antiques and chopping wood for winter fires. My bike is stashed under the porch. I pull it out, brush a spider off the handlebar, and climb on. I pedal away from my house, trying to get up enough speed to catch the wind between my teeth. Then I remember Uncle Roderick teaching me how to ride, putting bandages on my knees and elbows when I fell. I remember following him into town on crisp fall days to visit the farmer's market. I remember him showing me how to change the tire, our hands greasy and black and smelling like rubber and the earth. Something blunt and unstoppable tries to push its way up from my stomach into my throat and behind my eyes. I brake sharply, jump off, and walk back home, leaving my bike sprawled on the side of the dirt road, one wheel still spinning forlornly. I go to bed early that night, too sad to stay awake. I'm fast asleep until all at once I'm not. It's like the night he died all over again, except instead of a sudden lack, a cold nothing where there was once a warm someone, now there's something else. My eyes are still shut tight, but someone is in my room. Her eyes were shut tight, I say in my head, like a narrator, wondering what a girl in a book would do. She knew it was just her imagination. I try opening them just barely and peeking through my eyelashes, but it's so dark. Dark enough that if I open my eyes a little more, I'll still be safe. I hope. I squint them open a crack more and see it. It? Him? Her? A tall, thin, dark shape looming in front of my closed door. Is it a shadow? Is it moving? I'm silent. I'm so silent. It can't know I'm awake. I'm not even breathing. And then I realize that I've stopped breathing. Sleep breaths are long and slow and steady, and it knows I'm awake now. I see it, him, move toward me, and quick as anything, I flip on the light next to my bed. I don't know if I want to see, but light will help, no matter what. And nothing's there. It's not the first time I've been scared in my house at night, but it's the first time I can't scream and know that my uncle will come running. When I was very little, I had a lot of nightmares. Mom doesn't wake up for anything, but Uncle Roderick would be by my side right away, talking me through it. He'd ask what I thought it meant, if it represented something I was afraid of in real life, what the dream was trying to tell me. And in discussing, it would fade from memory, completely forgotten in the morning. I want to call for him now and know that he would come in, sit on the side of my bed, and tell me that ghosts are nothing to be afraid of, that they don't even know we're here, that we're not even in the same world. But he's resting now, at peace, and I can't help but think that this one felt different. It wasn't in another world. It knew I was there, and it knew I was awake. But I don't know what it wanted, and I don't know why it left. After that, I can only sleep in fits and starts, but by morning I've almost managed to convince myself that it was only a dream. And even if it wasn't a dream, even if there was something, some spirit in my room, it wasn't really all that different from the wandering ghosts that are always wishing around my house. They've never even paid attention to me. They've never hurt me before.